Hey friends, Barkey Dog here, back with another movie review. It's time once again to visit our old friend, the 1980s. So this time, we're talking about Krull from 1983. John, one of my viewers, sent me a whole flock of stuff off of my wish list. Thanks, man. You guys are awesome. Some of these things are real classics I've been meaning to get around to, including this one. So, let's get into it. Our story goes like this. One day, this here giant rock is headed for the planet Krull. Turns out it's a big old spaceship called the Black Fortress, and as soon as it lands, the big boss, known as the Beast, sets about taking over. Meanwhile, the two kings that rule this planet decide they have to put aside their long-standing feud and team up. To make that happen, they arrange a marriage between this here prince from one side, Colwyn, and this here cute princess, Lissa, from the other side. Together, they'll rule the planet and make things right. But lo! The Beast's soldiers attack during the wedding ceremony and kidnap the princess. Colwyn and a sage mentor need to save the day. One thing Colwyn needs is the Holy Grail. Glaive, which has magic powers and stuff. Then the pair gather a team of misfits and outlaws, including a goofy wizard magician guy, criminals, and a cyclops. Together, they swear to fight the Beast and save the princess. Meanwhile, the Beast has a hankering for hot princess action. Who can blame him? But she resists, knowing her true love Colwyn will eventually turn up and put the kibosh on the Beast and make Krull safe for democracy. Can Colwyn save the princess? Can the Beast be destroyed? And with the Glaive, make a good can opener? In our cast, we have a lot of British actors. Always a good thing. Well, British except for a few roles. Lysette Anthony plays Lissa, our love interest. She's gorgeous, of course, as a princess ought to be. She was in the Dark Shadows revival in the 1990s, the one with Ben Cross. She played the evil Angelique. She also appeared in several Bryan Adams music videos, including the one for one of his biggest hits, Run to You. I know I'd run to her. Unfortunately, she kinda hated making Krull. She later said her character had pretty much nothing to do, which is kinda true, and her voice was dubbed over by a British actress to match the rest of the cast, so she was very unhappy about it. She looks great as the princess, though, and she does kinda help out. She's not totally helpless. She stands up to the Beast, for example. Alun Armstrong plays the outlaw leader Torquil. He was in Dune, The Duelists, Sleepy Hollow, Braveheart, The Saint, just a ton of stuff, and I really liked him as Torquil. Freddie Jones plays Ynir, a familiar face. He was also in a ton of stuff, including The Never-Ending Story. Also in Dune, young Sherlock Holmes, the Black Cauldron Firestarter, and he had a long run on the TV series Emmerdale Farm. David Batley plays Ergo, the clumsy magic user and wannabe wizard. One of the best characters in this, honestly. He also appeared as Mr. Turkentine in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Bernard Bresslaw is here as Rel, the Cyclops. We last saw him in my review of Moon 02. He also appeared in a lot of roles, including the Carry On series of British comedies. He also played Varga, one of the Ice Warriors in a Patrick Troughton Doctor Who story. Perennial beauty Francesca Annis plays the Widow of the Web. She was also in Dune and played Lily Langtree in a TV series about the legendary actress. Liam Neeson has an early role in this, as does Robbie Coltrane. That's right, Hagrid is in this movie. So, what does this movie have to do with Star Trek? Well, it's this guy, Ken Marshall, who plays our hero Colwyn. Now, I was today years old when I realized he also played Commander Eddington on Deep Space Nine. Eddington turned traitor and joined the Maquis. Sisko didn't like that. No, sir. Well, anyway, Ken Marshall was deliberately channeling Errol Flynn in Krull, and you can kind of see it. I mean, he's no Errol Flynn, of course, but you can see the DNA in how he plays the hero. And he did all of his own stunts. See him climbing that mountain? That's really him. He's actually doing it. Don't you kind of miss that? An actor going all in, including doing a reasonable amount of their own stunts? Remember when we talked about this werewolf movie, Wolfen, from 1981? There's a scene that takes place on top of this big suspension bridge in New York, and that's really Albert Finney up there doing his scenes. That's not green screen or CGI, that was really him. I wouldn't do that even with a safety line. It was a little windy up there too, but he did it. And you can see his face with the cityscape behind him, the pavement far below. It just makes the picture more real, doesn't it? Now it's just Tom Cruise. Nobody else seems to do that. These days you got Rachel Zegler bitching about having to wear a costume. She's so stunning and brave, am I right? Climb up on top of that bridge, Rachel. Free climb that mountain. Then we'll talk. Well, anyhow, there were some hiccups making Krull. After a whole year of planning and pre-production, director Peter Yates really grew to hate the movie and took a vacation right in the middle of shooting. He went off to the Caribbean for a few weeks. Special effects makeup artist Christopher Tucker, who had worked on The Elephant Man, The Quest for Fire, and The Boys from Brazil, he walked off the movie over creative differences, whatever that means. And yet, there's so much to like here. One thing I was always struck by were these mountains. The movie was shot mostly in Italy, and I have no doubt these mountains were in several Hercules movies or spaghetti westerns and stuff, but they seem so new in Krull. A new place, a new landscape. They weren't the bog standard mountains in California. It wasn't until we saw the Misty Mountains in The Lord of the Rings that I got that sense again. A new place we hadn't really seen much. Sure, those mountains were probably in a lot of stuff made in New Zealand, but here in the US they seemed new and otherworldly. You could see that with Krull. They were thinking about it, trying to find new vistas for their alien planet. It totally works. Everything just feels different and original with Krull, in a good way, despite having several story elements, not unlike The Lord of the Rings, but still its own thing. Like the fire mares, they were cool, weren't they? Especially trained Clydesdale horses. And how magic works in this world is interesting, and very different from the usual sort we'd see in fantasy movies. The Glaive is an unusual weapon and pretty cool. Adam Savage looked at the original prop when it went up for auction recently, and he has a video about it on his Tested channel. The face of the Glaive is very intricately fashioned with inlay work and all of that. The back, which never faces the camera, is blank. And there's a trigger Ken Marshall would surreptitiously trip to get the blades, which are spring-loaded, to pop out. And you'd never know. That's so cool, isn't it? A little thing, a simple thing, but that's movie magic at work right there. Above everything going on is the absolutely wonderful score by James Horner. Easily half the appeal of Krull is that music. It really makes you feel the larger-than-life scope of this world, the thrills of high adventure, the heroism, and all of that. The score is easily one of my favorites. And Derek Meddings, one of the effects team on the James Bond movies, Space 1999, and other Jerry Anderson productions, worked on this film, so it has that going for it too. Krull was panned by critics at the time. They just didn't get it. And to be fair, there are some big questions left on the table. For example, I found myself wondering how long the Black Fortress was on Krull. I mean, we see it arrive, but beyond that, it's never clear the time frame we're talking about. Apparently, it's been there long enough for legends and lore to form about the beast and the fortress. And why does it randomly move around the planet? And where are these legions of soldiers which the fortress must surely contain? We don't see very many when our heroes get inside. And if the place is so hard to get to and everyone is afraid of it, why are there traps laid for our heroes to get stymied by? Why does it need that granular level of security? And primitive-looking traps, too. And how do people on Krull know about space and other races from other planets, yet remain in a sort of medieval society? And these soldiers, when they get blasted, we see these chestburster-type creatures pop out and disappear into the ground. Are they still there? Are they still alive? Still a threat? Is the armor just some kind of containment suit for these creatures, like Daleks, or what? And why does the beast want to marry this chick? I mean, I know why I would. But why would this alien want that? For a royal title? Would he need that to rule Krull? Seems unlikely, since he's been doing just fine subduing the people on this planet. Is it the magic power he's after? Would the magic work for him? And would it still work if he left Krull? The beast seems to use magic, so does that mean magic is everywhere throughout the universe Krull inhabits? There are a lot of questions, yeah, but in the end, most of them don't really matter. This is a fantasy adventure movie, after all. I'll be honest, in spite of everything, I've never understood the hate this movie gets. Okay, things happen very conveniently along the way. Events placed and people encountered just because the story needs them to. Is it a bit dopey in places? Sure. Is it a bit try-hard at times? Yeah, kinda. But is it really as awful as some people seem to think it is? I can't agree. And yet Krull is a movie people either love or they hate it. I've always loved this picture myself, flaws and all. There's really nothing else like it. Willow has elements of it maybe. The only other picture that comes to mind is Legend. Where Star Wars was a science fiction adventure movie with fantasy trappings, Krull flips the script and is a fantasy adventure movie with elements of sci-fi. And man, that Horner score is just amazing. If you've never seen Krull, you need to change that. It's a larger-than-life adventure movie, a fantasy set in a world of wonders and magic and romance, the kind we never see anymore. It's way better than its reputation. So I'm giving Krull 3 1/4 paws up. You take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.